Scientists in a classified program are working on a proof of concept black hole bomb that makes a hydrogen bomb look like a firecracker. The recent Wall Street Journal article claiming UFOs are part of an official disinformation campaign to hide classified aerospace technologies is not new. Could the detection of strange radio waves coming from below the ice in Antarctica have something to do with recent claims by JP, a former US Army serviceman, that ancient space arks are being activated around the world? The British are preparing to hold parliamentary hearings on UFOs and extraterrestrials and even create a select committee. These stories and more on Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome to the June 28 edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. Today's a big day. Today is when I am finally holding a long-delayed webinar on Dilemma of a Star Trek Future. But more about that later. So I'm going to try to keep this pretty short. So I want to begin with this retweet from Jason Wild, who talks about disclosure happening 6,000 years ago. And he cites stone tablets, sky god myths, Sumerian cuneiform texts, Egyptian glyphs, the Vedas, Ezekiel's vision, the Dogon star map, and Hopi prophecies, that when we're talking about disclosure and we're wanting governments to disclose, it's easy to overlook that disclosure is all around us in terms of all this ancient history that various peoples talked about. So I think it's very helpful that we acknowledge, or at least understand, that this is not new, that disclosure has happened in the past. There were ancient civilizations where extraterrestrials openly walked among and interacted with peoples. So this is something that is part of our history, so we just need to kind of like acknowledge that. And I think this is it's important, very helpful to know, or just to remind ourselves that it's all around us, that it's not just a matter of waiting for governments to reveal what has been happening, but we just look at some of the history around us, and it's time to remember. And that I think is a good point. It's time to remember. Well, here is a tweet from Christopher Mellon, who is discussing a Wall Street Journal article. Every American should know that their government has confirmed the reality of UFOs, specifically US officials responsible for analyzing thousands of military UAP reports submitted to the Pentagon have acknowledged data confirming the presence of intelligently controlled vehicles exhibiting technological capabilities we do not understand and cannot replicate. These are explicitly not secret US aerospace platforms. Okay, so that's the kicker right there, that you have these UFOs up there, they're flying around, and they are intelligently controlled, but Mellon is saying we don't understand them and we cannot replicate them, and they are not secret US aerospace platforms. Okay, so that's his position. And in my view, that's a limited hangout, because definitely they have been reverse engineered, and some of those platforms are government military anti-gravity vehicles. And also, we do understand the technology. We understand their origins. We know the difference, or at least those read into the programs know the difference between an extraterrestrial vehicle and a reverse engineered vehicle. In fact, they knew this in the 1950s. Yes, there is a whistleblower by the name of Anonymous, also called Stein. He was interviewed by Linda Moulton Howe, and he talked about being an army cryptographer. And he was the guy that actually revealed that President Eisenhower threatened the MJ-12 community or group, that he would invade Area 51 or the S4 facility if they didn't reveal what was going on. But he says that in the 1950s, he was down in South America, and his job was to look at the radar trackings and look at the evidence about these UFOs in South America, and to identify the ones that belonged to the Germans, reverse engineered German flying saucers, and the ones that belonged to the extraterrestrials. And so that was his job. And he explained there were clear differences. So they were doing this in the 1950s. But here you have Christopher Mellon saying that we do not understand these UFOs and cannot replicate them. But nevertheless, Christopher Mellon puts a tweet, and he's attacking the authors of the Wall Street Journal article that made the case that these UFOs that are being seen are in fact part of a disinformation program by the Air Force to hide the fact that there were classified aerospace technologies being tested. So the whole UFO extraterrestrial connection is just disinformation to hide kind of like advanced aerospace vehicles using stealth or whatever other kind of advanced technologies that they have. So this is Christopher Mellon criticizing the authors of the Wall Street Journal article. So what we have here is, in fact, a debate between those advocating a limited hangout, UFOs are real, have been recovered, involved NHI, but have not been successfully reverse engineered and also constitute a threat, and those wanting to debunk the entire UFO issue as simply Pentagon disinformation to hide the truth about classified aerospace programs. So in a way, you can say it's an argument between Tweedledum and Tweedledee. All right, here is something that has been a constant with people who have been having extraterrestrial or UFO interactions, and this is this concerns a Senate Intelligence Committee staffer who got information from Jake Barber. He's one of the whistleblowers concerning a crashed UFO program that he was a part of. So this is the Australian journalist Ross Coulthart. So what I'm going to do is play a clip from an interview he did on the Jesse Michaels podcast.
One of the things Jake Barber told me when he was giving his direct evidence of the legacy program, first-person evidence. I mean, people say, where's the evidence?
Yeah.
The first-person evidence of Jake Barber was given to the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence.
Yes.
And one of the staffers on that committee was concerned for his own safety and asked Jake, are you able to help me get security because somebody from the Defense Department is ordering helicopters to fly across and over my home. They're harassing my home. And that's the kind of thing that the Defense Department was doing. They were buzzing a guy with Black Hawk helicopters just hovering over his home as an act of intimidation. A staffer working for the Congress.
I know exactly who you're talking about, and he was providing a pipeline of legacy operators to basically talk to the Senate, the Senate Committee.
So I'm not blaming the staffers because these people are intimidated. They have families too.
Yeah.
And I don't think the public realized that this is how the game is being played. You've got a vast national security state, and it is truly a deep state protecting itself, its self-interest, misusing the resources of the state your money, your taxpayer dollars, to essentially bully and intimidate, and in some cases murder people. One of the things...
Okay, so there you have just another example out of many of these black helicopters shadowing people. I mean, I've come across this again and again, of different whistleblowers, insiders, secret space program witnesses who talk about these black helicopters without insignia, kind of approaching them. And it's very interesting that they have the technology to be able to detect kind of like high levels of torsion field frequencies, gamma ray frequencies that are indicative of UFOs, extraterrestrials moving into and out of our 3D reality, that they have technology to do this. And so this is how they're able to so quickly identify people who have been having contact, and they often send helicopters to investigate these black helicopters. All right, here is this Wall Street Journal article that is now debunking UFO evidence and whistleblowers. So it's pretty clear that if the deep state wants to slow down the official UFO disclosure process, because it really kicked in a high drive in 2023 when David Grush was a witness before the House of Representatives subcommittee meeting. And then the following year, you had Luis Elizondo doing the same thing, appearing. Then you have the public interest rising to an all-time high. And so the deep state has decided, and this is very likely evidence of what Dr. Andrea Martin told us several weeks ago, that the leadership of the Galactic Federation of Worlds reached an agreement with the Earth Alliance, with the White Hats, about slow walking the disclosure process and not releasing advanced technologies for some time. And so in that article, and in that interview, we talked about what that meant in terms of human suffering. And people say, well, where's the evidence for that? Well, here's circumstantial evidence, because with this Wall Street Journal article that came out earlier in this month, essentially they are really saying that anyone that believes UFOs are of extraterrestrial origin, they're a fool. That, in fact, it was a Pentagon disinformation program to hide the existence of advanced aerospace technologies like stealth aircraft and so forth. And so this really does put the kibosh on official UFO disclosure. It doesn't slow down or doesn't stop unofficial or organic grassroots disclosure, but it definitely puts the kibosh on official disclosure. And that means that big oil, big pharma, major banking cartels can continue to make enormous profits for another few years, until there's a possibility that the whole ET UFO issue again takes off. But right now, official UFO disclosure is being slow walked, and this does corroborate information from Andrea Martin. Okay, so here's this is the interview I did, a follow-up interview I did with Andrea Martin. Galactic Envoys are waking up, and arrests of compromised Galactic Federation of Worlds representatives. And so this is helpful, because Dr. Martin, she has been working with up to 10 people that believe that they are part of a galactic envoy program where they came to Earth with partners, and while one partner chose to incarnate on Earth and go through this experience on Earth, the other partner would stay up on the ships working with the Galactic Federation or in some other organization to monitor and assist their partner. And that there are up to, estimates have been that there are up to 250 million star seeds on planet Earth, and a large proportion of those are galactic envoys. Now, we don't know the exact percentage, there's only estimates, but Andrea Martin is working with about 10 people at the moment who all had memories of being galactic envoys. So she also talked about the Galactic Federation being compromised, and that some of its operatives had been arrested, and they were compromised by the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys to slow down official disclosure through their deep state minions. And this is where Dr. Martin said something that I thought was really very insightful, and I hadn't come across this before. She said that a common ruse used by negative extraterrestrials and their minions, the deep state, was to convince the human population that they weren't yet ready for extraterrestrial disclosure due to deep divisions and ongoing warfare. So how many times have you heard that we aren't ready as a species because we are so warlike, and that the deep state would continuously stir up divisions and create new wars to prevent disclosure, as most recently demonstrated in Israel's unprovoked attack on Iran. Now, some people are going to say, well, Israel was provoked because Iran had reached a critical threshold of 60% in uranium enrichment, so they were only like weeks or months away. And given Iran's history of public support for the eradication of the Israeli state, then there are people that say that this attack was actually provoked by the Iranian leadership's decision not to come up with a diplomatic solution whereby the uranium would be unequivocally used for peaceful purposes as opposed to weapons. So I don't want to get into that, because both sides can make the case that it was provoked or unprovoked. So I don't want to get into that. But I think it's an example of how the deep state operates, that there are these divisions, and all you have to do is you just have to prod one side to attack the other, and then all of a sudden we're in another war. So this is, I think, a very common strategy used by the deep state. Okay, and as I mentioned, Andrea Martin is working with up to 10 individuals that are part of a Galactic Envoy program, and so we need to hear what they have to say. And each of these envoys, such as Andrea Martin and two of the others that I'm familiar with, and these are Erica Amorina and Michelle Portofrio, both of whom say that they are Galactic Envoys, and both of whom say have partners working or that are part of the Galactic Federation in various positions. Okay, so this is, and one last thing about this article or this interview I did with Andrea Martin, and this is something that others have talked about, and we just need to be mindful. She thought that the war was creating the conditions, or would be used to create the conditions, for a fake alien salvation event that fulfills religious prophecies. So she said that was a possibility. Didn't say that is what's going to happen, that was a possibility. And when I had interviewed her the first time around, I recall her saying that disclosure is going to be delayed a long, long time, or you have something like this where you could actually, and here we're talking official disclosure, we could have something like this, like a contrived extraterrestrial salvation event where supposedly extraterrestrials come and stop a war. But of course, the war was stopped, but not by extraterrestrials, but by Donald Trump actually intervening. So more about that soon. Okay, so this is, okay, I'm going to jump to here because I'm going to talk about my webinar at the very end. All right, so this is something that is on Dr. Joseph Farrell's website, the Giza Death Star, and he often writes some very provocative articles, and this one is also very provocative, and he's talking about a black hole bomb, and he relates it to the Nazi Bell experiment, which used torsion fields to distort time-space, and that if you weaponize this, then you could create something that would make a hydrogen bomb look like a firecracker. And I don't doubt that you actually have a class of weapons that make modern hydrogen bombs that I think the largest bomb ever used was the Russian Tsar bomb, and I think that was like 60 megatons. And that was, and when you and so you compare that to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bomb blast, they were like 15 kilotons. So if you're talking something that's 60 megatons, that is like 4,000 times the firepower of the bomb, the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. And I know that Dr. Edward Teller, he was I guess the guy behind the American hydrogen bomb. He wanted to develop a continent buster. So he wasn't content with just, I think the largest US hydrogen bomb test was Operation, I think it was Bravo. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I think it was 15 megatons, somewhere around that. Well, he wanted to create a continent buster, which would have been in the gigaton range, so 1,000 times more powerful than a hydrogen bomb, which in turn was 1,000 times more powerful than a atomic bomb. So now you get these black hole bombs that make hydrogen bombs look like firecrackers. So it's like, well, what in the world are they developing? This is a proof of concept, according to Dr. Farrell, but I think you always will have scientists and national security figures saying, well, we've got to develop one of these because if we don't do it, the Russians will. And we know definitely that the Chinese will. So we got to do it so that we can defend ourselves and have first use. So I with that kind of logic, I think that we are probably going to see the development of these black hole bombs, and in fact that they're probably already being developed. And this is just a kind of like a open source literature discussing this as a proof of concept, when in fact the black hole bomb has already been developed in the classified programs. So I think that is very, very possible, and kind of shows the sad state of human affairs, that these people, these scientists and national security people, can build a bigger and more destructive weapons systems. That it's not enough to just destroy the planet 100 times over with hydrogen bombs. You've got to be able to destroy it 1,000,000 times over with some new weapon system. It's laughable if it wasn't so sad that this is the world we live in, that these people, just these scientists and national security people, just controlling the situation. But and, you know, you understand the logic. It's like, yeah, if we don't do it, the communists in China will, and yeah, the communists in China would do it. I mean, this is the sad truth, that they would do it. And so this is why American scientists do it. So I guess it's a case for kind of like having a unified planetary government, whether we call it global governance, but to stop this sort of thing, because otherwise you're going to have these black hole bombs being developed, if they haven't already. Are you going to have the weaponization of AI? Because again, if we don't do it, the Chinese will beat us to it, and they could take over the United States in a heartbeat if they have weaponized their AI. Okay, all right. So here we go. This is a retweet. Okay, so this is from Joe Emergia. He's talking about the Wall Street Journal article debunking UFOs. And in the article, it is said, I thought the US government using UFOs as a cover for our classified tech was pretty well common knowledge that had been going on for years. He was right. Check out this 1997 New York Times article, and absolutely correct. I mean, this is good that we are reminded that this Wall Street Journal article that came out saying that, well, UFOs, that's just disinformation by governments to hide the existence of classified weapons systems. And the point that I'm making in my retweeting of this is that, yes, this is a repeat of something that was promoted in 1997 in the New York Times, the same idea. Now, what's common to both of these articles, the 1997 New York Times article and the 2025 Wall Street Journal article, making the case that UFO reports are actually misidentifications of official government craft being tested in classified programs, that both of these articles appeared around the same time as the testimonies of highly credentialed whistleblowers threatened to undermine UFO secrecy. So in 1997, the New York Times article aimed to discredit the claims of a Lieutenant Colonel Philip Corso, whose book, The Day After Roswell, had become a national bestseller and gained much public support for the idea that retrieved UFO debris was used to kickstart many advanced technologies. So this was a bestseller, over 1 million copies sold in the United States. And so the military intelligence community decided, okay, we need to kind of like suck the wind out of that particular sailboat. So let's just put out an official statement saying that UFOs are really just misidentifications of classified technologies being tested by the US military and corporations, and that we fooled the public this way. So that way, anyone believing UFOs, extraterrestrial craft that have crashed, that have been retrieved, and their technologies have been used for kind of reverse engineering or seeding corporations with advanced tech that would take us forward 50 years, as was made, that case was made in the Philip Corso book, that such views are ridiculed. And in 2025, the Wall Street Journal article wanted to do something very similar, because there was growing public enthusiasm, in fact, great public enthusiasm, in the whistleblower claims of David Grush, came out in 2023, and more recently, Jake Barber, who came out this year as an eyewitness participant in a UFO crash retrieval program. And both of them were saying that reverse engineering efforts are underway. Neither one, just like Chris Mellon, have acknowledged that these reverse engineering efforts have been successful, but they acknowledge that they are happening. So again, the deep state, the establishment wanted to kind of like slow down or kind of like take the wind out of the sails for the kind of public enthusiasm that UFOs are real and they've crashed and been reverse engineered and retrieved and all of that stuff, that they came out with this Wall Street Journal article. So I guess this tells us that every 30 years or so, it's been close to 30 years, as you have new whistleblowers coming forward saying that UFOs are real, they're extraterrestrial in origin, advanced technologies have been retrieved in crash retrieval operations, that you have this idea coming forward that, oh no, it's all disinformation from the Pentagon because we wanted to hide that we wanted to hide our classified aerospace programs from you and use UFOs as the cover. Okay, here's a story that came out concerning strange radio waves coming from below the ice in Antarctica. Okay, so this is a kind of more recent story, June 15, 2025. Now, I was aware that that neutrinos have been detected in Antarctica several years ago as coming from the interior. This seems to be a different story, and this concerns radio waves and neutrinos coming from underneath the Antarctic ice caps and being detected by these balloons that are part of the Antarctic Impulsive Transient Antenna, ANITA. Okay, so this is published in the New York Times, and I thought that this was kind of noteworthy because very recently, JP, former US Army, he was saying that ancient space arks are being activated all around the world, according to what he was told in a military briefing at Eglin Air Force Base. And we did an update where he talked about being in a big auditorium at Eglin, where on the one side there were these 40 Nordic-looking extraterrestrials, and on the other side there were 40 regular US Air Force personnel being given a briefing on space arks moving, being activated, and that that the deep state was playing a role in the activation of a space ark in the Pacific Ocean, and that there would probably be a mission to that. And JP was told that he will probably be part of that mission, and apparently he was. He was abducted from Antarctica. Sorry, he was abducted from Japan, and he was taken to the specific space ark. And the deep state operatives there were about 30 of them, all clad in black uniforms and black face masks, hiding their identity, that he was told to activate the ark. So they're clearly, the deep state is able to gain access to these arks, and they use personnel to try to activate them. So one of these arks is hidden under the Antarctica ice cap, according to JP, and another source, Jean-Charles Moyen, who says that he was physically teleported there and seen it. So that is very significant, and that is, I think, very helpful information for us to know that there is a space ark under the Antarctic ice cap, and that the Antarctica is witnessing these strange radio waves coming from underneath the ice sheet. So, is that part of the activation of the space arks? Is the deep state involved? We don't know, but certainly very interesting to look at that. Okay, so here is my reflection on what happened as a result of the US attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. So let me read this out. President Donald Trump did a lot more than merely bring about a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, after only days earlier launching an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran was the final state that was to fall in a deep state plot that involved 7 Muslim nations, according to what General Wesley Clark learned from Pentagon generals in 2001. After the fall of Iran, all would be set for the Gog and Magog end times war, which would pit Israel against a consortium of nations, Gog and Magog. So this plan to have these 7 Middle Eastern nations invaded and their governments toppled, and you then have essentially failed states or governments that are controlled by the West or controlled by Muslim fundamentalists, that was all part of this kind of like attempt to create a Gog and Magog end times war, because this is what the deep state likes to do. It likes to fulfill biblical prophecy by manufacturing circumstances that it could then be used to manipulate people into believing that, oh, we're watching biblical prophecy being fulfilled here. Oh my God, look, Israel is in a war with Iran. This is fulfilling biblical prophecy of Gog and Magog, and you've got to get in there and support the Israelis because that's going to fulfill the condition for the return of the Messiah and the return of Jesus. There we go. So you get Christian Zionists jumping on board and wanting to support Israel and so forth. So the Israel and Iran war was launched by the deep state in a last-ditch attempt to start the Gog and Magog war. I think that is why Benjamin Netanyahu launched this attack, because I think Netanyahu is under the control of the deep state, and the deep state wants a Gog and Magog war. They want a big war in the Middle East involving all these Middle Eastern nations attacking Israel, because that's how you fulfill prophecy. But what Trump did, I think, kind of like took the wind out of their sails. Donald Trump's attack on Iran, its token response and subsequent ceasefire have neutralized the attempt to start a Gog and Magog war. So I think this is a big deal. I know there's a lot of people in the liberal media saying, oh, you know, Trump didn't do anything, that there was this leaked preliminary assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency saying that there was not substantial damage to the facilities. And of course, the deep state wants people to think that because they want the Gog and Magog war to start. They want Israel and Iran engaging in a war. They want Israel to attack Iran again. They want the US to be sucked into that war again. And that's why Donald Trump is insistent that the nuclear facilities of Iran were destroyed. And there have been subsequent intelligence reports saying that they were destroyed. And that's actually a good thing, that these facilities were destroyed, because that does preempt this Gog and Magog end times war, because there's no doubt now that Israel will attack Iran if it suspects Iran is on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon, and such an attack always has the potential of drawing in the United States and sucking in other countries into a regional war that becomes Gog and Magog end times war. So I think that what we saw happening with the end of the Israel-Iran war was orchestrated. So many suspect that events were orchestrated. In fact, evidence suggests that Trump and an Earth alliance involving Presidents Putin, Xi, etc., worked with Trump to allow the war to start, but to then quickly neutralize it. So this is where you get into the whole 5D chess thing. It's like, okay, the deep state wants to start a Gog and Magog war. They got their asset, Benjamin Netanyahu, to start the war, but then the Earth Alliance steps in, and it's like, okay, we'll talk to the Iranians, we'll talk to the Russians, we'll talk to the Chinese, and we'll neutralize this. And we'll do it by the United States attacking and taking out Iran's nuclear facilities, and therefore the deep state loses its justification, because the deep state was also behind this effort to have Iran develop a nuclear weapon by stealth, even though the Iranians were pretending that, oh, you know, our supreme leader, he has a fatwa prescribing the development of nuclear weapons, and so we're not developing nuclear weapons, even though they developed, they enriched uranium to the 60% level, which is very close to weapons grade uranium, and so I think the deep state was behind contriving this conflict, both on the side of getting Israel to orchestrate an attack, and also getting Iran to produce enriched uranium at that critical 60% threshold, very close to weapons grade. Okay, so the Gog and Magog event has come as predicted in scripture and fizzled into a big nothing burger. So this is very important here. We have to understand that the way extraterrestrials and the deep state interpret the future or history it's event driven. It's not time driven. So it's not as though, because Wesley Clark was told that those 7 states would be attacked over the next 5 years. He was told that in 2001. But these kinds of events, these kinds of contingencies or fulfillment of prophecy and so forth, is not driven by time. It's driven by events. And so there was some event that had to be reached, and that was what we just saw: Israel attacking Iran openly, and Iran responding openly that this could escalate to a regional war. So that end times event has happened, but it fizzled into a big nothing burger because Donald Trump, working with the Earth Alliance, working with Xi, working with Putin, decided that, okay, we're going to take out the nuclear facilities that the Iranians were building, and that takes away the justification for this end times war. And we want Iran not to attack US bases and close down the Straits of Hormuz. We want them to launch a token attack that we can just take out without any loss of life, and conflict over. And that's exactly what happened. So I think this Gog and Magog end times war didn't happen because the Earth Alliance stopped it, and that was Trump, President Putin, and President Xi, all coordinated, as well as the Iranians, or the Iranian president. Okay, so now that takes us to, will a contrived extraterrestrial salvation event be the next card the deep state plays? Because think about it, the Gog and Magog war was a big, big card that the deep state was going to play, but now that's gone. They can't do that anymore. So what's next? The end times salvation event, where extraterrestrials show up and save us in some way. Okay, we'll see if that happens. It's a possibility. All right, so here is my video version of an article I wrote titled The Trauma and Tribulations of a Galactic Envoy. So in this article and the video version I did on YouTube, I examine a book by Erica Amarina, Girl Stolen, A Collection of Memories, where she describes a lifetime of being abducted by grey extraterrestrials, being used in their hybridization program, also being abducted by being subjected to military abductions, MILABs, where she again suffered physical, emotional abuse, and we're talking gross physical abuse, sexual abuse, and so forth. So this is not the sort of thing people just make up because they want to get internet attention or monetize things. I mean, people don't make up stories about being sexually abused. That's just my experience. I mean, it just doesn't happen. These are traumatic events that a lot of people often don't survive. So the ones that do survive, people like Erica Amarina, they survive because they find that inner strength and the connections to their star families, so that in the end they are rescued. And so in this book, the book really deals with Erica's trauma, at the hands of these greys, at the hands of the deep state. So it's difficult reading, but what is really worthwhile is how she was able to discover these people like Rebecca Rose, Niara Isley, who were able to get through those kinds of traumatic events themselves, and essentially kind of like rebuild their lives. And in the case of Niara Isley, she kind of like was able to connect with her star family. And the same thing happened with Erica Amorina, that she connected with her star family. So that's mentioned in the book. And the book kind of like ends on a cliffhanger. We'll have a volume 2 coming out. But in that second volume, Erica will talk about her connection with the star families, being part of the Galactic Envoy program, and how everything that she was subjected to as a abductee by the Greys, by the military abductions, that was all part of an intelligence gathering operation by the star families, by the Galactic Envoys, by the Galactic Federation of Worlds. So really important stuff, and here is I talk about Rebecca Rose and the secret space program, super soldier cyborgs that were used in the secret space programs by the Draco reptilians and by the German Dark Fleet. That's what happened to Rebecca Rose, and the same thing happened to Erica Amorina. So yeah, definitely take a look at this article. Take a look at the video version if you like. Here's a space ark that. So this is the floating barge above a space ark that Erica Amorina was taken to as part of the secret space program. And that's where JP's story comes in. So Erica also had information on that. Here's Niara Isley's book, Facing the Shadow, Embracing the Light. So yeah, definitely I highly recommend getting a copy of her book, which is available on Amazon.com, Girls Stolen, Amazon.com. So there it is on Amazon. Really good, and give it a good review, and that helps to get the word out there. All right, so let's go back now to my Twitter feed. Here's a video about the origins of the Swaruu Cosmic Agency material, which I'm currently researching, and I plan to write about it soon. So far, my research indicates it's original information that is being sincerely transmitted by UFO researchers and not disinformation as claimed by some. So I'm researching this. I still haven't reached my final conclusions, just gathering evidence at the moment. So the material emerged in 2017 as a result of two Spanish-based UFO researcher, or Spain-based UFO researchers, Robert, who's Spanish, and Josiah, who is Polish but lives in Spain. And they met an elderly French female contactee at a World Ufology conference in Montserrat, Spain in 2017. And the contactee put both Robert and Josiah in touch with a Tagetan Pleiadian called Swaruu, using the internet to communicate, and the rest is history. Now, when I learned this, it was a big surprise, because I was actually one of the presenters at that Montserrat conference, along with Corey Gooden and Laura Eisenhower. And I remember meeting Josiah and Robert, and actually remember doing an interview with him. And I can't remember Josiah's role in all of that, but there was something done even with her, as I recall. But definitely I remember being interviewed by Robert, and that came out on his YouTube channel. I think Josiah was an intermediary for that, or even translated. Now, the thing is, I remember being approached by many people at that Montserrat conference, and that may have included probably did include this French contactee, because there weren't all that many English speakers at that conference. But I'm unable to confirm that. So that's, to me, an interesting synchronicity, that I was there when these connections were being made, and that this French contactee passed on details to Robert and Josiah. And so anyway, so the history of this contact event is covered in this video. It's a short video, only goes for 21 minutes. The announcement of our Tagetan contact, May 2018, translated and dubbed, and that came out on the Cosmic Agency video, which has 102,000 subscribers. And I think the Agencia Cosmica, which is Josiah's Spanish version, that has, I think, it's about 189,000 subscribers. So the Spanish version is bigger. So I met both Robert and Josiah in Montserrat, Spain in 2017, where they met this French contactee who connected them with Swaruu, an alleged Tagetan female who has been sharing information with them since they got in touch later in 2017. So it's a small world, really, isn't it? So many connections. And I do hope to put out information about this in the next week or two, as I've learned more about it. So here's a positive development. The British are preparing to hold parliamentary hearings on UFOs and ETs, and even create a select committee. So this came out in the Daily Star, which is a British tabloid. So take that for what it's worth. But apparently there is a member of the House of Lords who has been approached by a British filmmaker who wants to set up, who is advocating that the British follow the US model and set up a kind of British parliamentary inquiry into the UFO phenomenon. And so this Lord has said, yeah, great idea, we'll set this up. So it appears that Britain is going to follow the US model and set up some parliamentary hearing on UFOs and encourage whistleblowers from the Army, the Navy, and the British Air Force to come forward and share their testimonies about what they found. And because it's going to be a hearing in the British Parliament, they will be protected, and so they will be released from whatever non-disclosure agreements that they've signed with any of the British military services or with corporations. So that would actually be quite a development. And so this would follow in the footsteps of what's been happening in the United States. And right now there is a tug of war between this UFO caucus that was established in the House of Representatives, where you have people like Representatives Anna Luna, Eric Burlinson, and quite a few others who have been advocating for UFOs to be officially disclosed and have even a select committee created in the US Congress. So far that hasn't happened, but they have been trying to get support for that. And they've had whistleblowers such as David Grush and Luis Elizondo coming forward talking about UFO crash retrieval operations. And some of these involve the United Kingdom. So I think it's great that the United Kingdom is following in the footsteps of the British. And hopefully the Australians won't be too far behind once they see the British doing this, that maybe you'll see the Australians doing it as well. Okay, so here's an interview that is in the process of being released. This is Mars colonies since 1964, artificial intelligence, American Pope, and Israel-Iran war. So this has been first released on my Patreon channel. So you can go to my Patreon channel, patreon.com/Michael Sala, or you can click the link in the description and it'll take you there as well. Now, this is my latest interview with Gene Decode, Mars colonies since 1964, and we go into detail in terms of what has been happening on the moon and Mars. Gene Decode was given information by his father in 1964, over 60 years ago. He was told by his father. So Gene was a youngster at the time. Gene eventually joined the U.S. Navy and served for over 20 years as a senior NCO. He doesn't want his rank revealed. And Gene also talked about underground biolabs, super soldiers in Ukraine, and Israel's attack on Iran, and the Palantir AI system, and how it's been supported at the highest level of government, and the Vatican, the American Pope. So all of this at the moment, you can watch it in full on Patreon right now. Or you could wait for the public version to be released on Rumble. Because Gene talks about sensitive topics concerning small people and things that are extracted from them when they are in these fearful states. That substance, adrenaline. Okay, sorry, I have to make sure that this this doesn't get me a strike on YouTube. It's not going to be released in full on YouTube when it comes out officially on Monday. So officially on Monday, it'll come out in full on Rumble. Only the uncensored version will come out on Rumble, but it's available now on Patreon. So you just pay $7 a month. You can get the uncensored version. You can get it without ads, and also you get it now several days ahead of the public release on Rumble and YouTube. So that is a great way of supporting me and this channel for only $7 a month, and you get all this great content without ads, and you get the early access versions as well. So that's available right now on Patreon. So again, just go to patreon.com/Michael Sala, and you can watch this 1.5-hour interview with Gene Decode, uncensored, without ads right now, or you can wait until Monday. All right, so this takes me now to the webinar. This webinar that has been much delayed. It is coming out. It is coming out today at 3 p.m. US East Coast time, 12 p.m. Pacific time, and also 8 p.m. On US. Sorry, that it will be in standard Greenwich Mean Time there in England. So this is a webinar that has been long delayed. It is something that has been delayed because of illness I went through back in when was that? February of 2020 of this year, 2025. And soon after that, health problems were also experienced by George Kavasilis and the other panelist that is part of this webinar today, Sarah Bressman. She was attacked on the internet. She suffered a lot of harassment on the internet, and I think it's because this topic, dilemma of a Star Trek future, is something that there are people that do not want you to consider what are the problems with the Star Trek future. I am kind of like sitting on the fence in terms of the Star Trek future. I've written a book, Space Force, Our Star Trek Future, where I was very supportive of a Star Trek future. But more recently, I have come across information suggesting that there are problems with a Star Trek future, a dilemma of a Star Trek future. So this is what you will learn if you attend this webinar today at 3 p.m. Online. It's going to be done via Crowdcast. There will be a recording of it if you cannot attend the live version, and you can attend and kind of like hear from me doing a 1.5 hour presentation first to just present all the issues for you in terms of what is a Star Trek future, what is the dilemma. Then there is going to be a 1.5 hour panel with George Cavassalis and Sarah Bressman, where they can share their insights, their experiences. George has been a contactee since I think it was the early 2000s, and Sarah Bressman has worked with over 1,000 clients using QHHT, where she's spoken to their higher selves and gotten a lot of information about extraterrestrials. And then we'll have between 45 minutes to an hour of Q&A at the very end. So this is going to be a full-on kind of like afternoon where we do a deep dive into dilemmas of a Star Trek future. So I hope you can join us for that. The link is in the description. So that's it. So thank you for watching another week in review, and I hope to see you at the webinar later today, or if not, at next week's week in review. Thank you and aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.